Hello and welcome to the United in Focus YouTube channel. Delighted as ever to be joined by Jonny. We're going to do a bit of a season preview ahead of the new campaign for Manchester United. So, Jonny, how's things with you? Have you been enjoying the summer?
I've not enjoyed it as much as I should have done. I enjoyed the World Cup, enjoyed England's success and then non-success, and it's been a good pre-season for United. I think a lot of positives, even if it's ended on a bit of a flat line, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think if you look at most games, bar the 4-2 defeat against AC Milan, you could probably take more positives than negatives from those games. So, and as well, not too many injuries. Of course, Mason Mount has suffered one, which was probably not much of a surprise. But look, we'll get on to the season ahead, Jonny. Big question first. Where will Manchester United finish in the Premier League?
I don't think it'll be lower than third. I don't know what you think, but I could see us finishing first, second, third. I can't see it being lower. I know that a lot's been made of the fixture congestion playing a part in kind of knocking us down a few pegs. But I think our team and first 11 definitely can compete with Arsenal. It's just what happens when we pick up those injuries because there's 7 or 8 of them. You would expect them to get injured at some stage. Um, but I'm going to put my hat on first. I think we're going to win the whole lot. What about
I'm I'm a little bit on the fence at the moment because even though we're 4 days away from the season starting, and maybe three by the time the video gets out, but I just feel that there's more activity coming in the transfer market. I do think United will sign one or two more, hopefully three players. Um, so right now I'm kind of between sixth and third place. But if we do get in some quality signings, I'll be a lot more optimistic, almost like you saying that, yeah, we could push because you look at some of our rivals, City, Guardiola not there, Maresca coming in, Liverpool with Andoni Areola coming in. You don't quite know what to expect. It's kind of the season of the unexpected. We feel that Arsenal will be strong, but I look at United and how we finished last season. If we got that extra push in the market, I think we could surprise a few. And speaking of which, surprising a few, will we do that in the Champions League, Jonny? Where do you think we'll come in the Champions League?
I'm a lot more not as optimistic for that. I can't see us getting past the big boys yet. Um, but I feel like we will probably prioritize the Premier League and kind of securing that consecutive back to back top fours or top threes or whatever you want to call it. But I'd probably have us quarterfinals at least. Tottenham last season, that was at the quarterfinals they got to. So I think, or by being a Premier League side, I think you have to get to that level, which might be a
It,
bit cocky of me, but
I think that would be a really respectful finish, and it's kind of what I'm expecting as well. The new format of the Champions League, which would be new to Manchester United because we haven't been back in the Champions League since it came in. It'll take a bit of getting used to even for us. I'm sure we'll have to be checking the formats, but that was kind of set up to suit clubs like Manchester United to give us that kind of almost guaranteed route into the knockouts. So with
yeah,
that in place, is quarterfinals almost a bit of a bare minimum? What we
I would
should be
say
expecting because
you would think so, wouldn't you?
it's not
Because
quite the quarterfinals of the old format.
yeah, well, the four of the group stage games should, in theory, be comfortable wins. Those pot four and pot three teams. I've had a look at
Mm.
who's in there, and and I know anything can happen in football, but we should be beating all of them in there. And then you see the clubs that are getting to that level last season. I think we're better than them, and I think we have better depth than we maybe think. You try to build a bench. There's a couple of first team players not even getting on the bench now, with like the likes of Lacey coming through, Fletcher's. So I do think we've got a good chance of sort of pushing a bit further in that. And it depends on the draw, really, doesn't it? If we get Arsenal's draw from last season, I don't see why we can't go semi final, maybe even final.
Well, that's it. When you throw in those factors and you get a good route in, it kind of changes the prediction almost. You start maybe talking about semi-finals or well, I've already booked my hotel for Madrid. That's already booked because you're better being safe than being sorry. I've learned that mistake in the past. Moving on, Johnny, who is your prediction for United's player of the season?
I've thought about this a lot the past week. I don't know who have you went for this season.
I've went for Bruno again because I think looking at last, I know it's the easy answer, but looking at last season, it was almost the equivalent of looking back into seasons when Brian Robson was captain at United, and so easy to pick who was the player of the year. The gap is massive. I think the best we can hope for is that gap kind of tightens a bit this year, and some of the other players are at least competing. But I would go with Bruno again.
I think he's the obvious choice, isn't he? But I would like to see someone else get it, because I think if someone else does get it, it probably means we've had a really good season. I think if we do win the league, I can see someone like Mbumo, maybe even a Rashford if he comes in and starts games again. I can see them being in the running, but I think you are right. It probably is going to be Bruno. There's just such a big gap between him and everyone else in the team and the league, really.
The next question is kind of, I suppose, asking almost who do you think will compete with Bruno if he's not your answer. But who are you saying will get top goal scorer for United?
I think it's probably between Mbumo and Benjamin Sesko, but it all depends. I think if Sesko has kind of a stuttering start and he's on the bench until game week 5, game week 6, Mbumo could have already scored 6 or 7 goals. Looking at our fixture list, so it'll be between those two, I think, or potentially
Over the
like
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say just a Rashford. I think if he is playing, I think that means he'll be in form if he's playing. Because I think if he's not playing, there'll be a Dorgu in there, there'll be a Cunha. So if Rashford does play, I think he'll get probably like 15 goals, I'd say, in the league.
And just on that, we've seen over pre-season in Buemo, he's been playing as a centre forward quite a bit because of Sesko's injury, and Xerxes, we already know he's not at the required standard to lead the line for United. Do you think it's an easy transition for Buemo to come into games not knowing whether he's a striker, not knowing whether he's a winger? Because from listening to other accounts and former players, it's not quite as simple as that. You need a few games in each position to get some momentum. So is that a bit of a hindrance going into the new season for these players? And of course, Sesko probably won't get to start for the first few games because he missed the entirety of pre-season.
Yeah, well, I think Mbumo's more than showed he can play that role, hasn't he? In pre-season, he looks very sharp. I think he'll actually have a quicker start this season than he did last. But he plays very similar. I think when whether he's on the right or up front, he's always kind of looking to run in behind. So it's probably less of a jump for him than it would be for another winger who's maybe more of a out and out winger. But do you think we'll still sign a striker? I know there's been a lot of talk of these young strikers across Europe, and Ollie Watkins has been mentioned as well a couple of times. I've seen.
Unfortunately, I don't think it's at the top of the priorities because I think that is the left back and hopefully a midfielder as well. But I think it should be. And it'll probably come down to at the end of the market who becomes available and what they're offered. We know how agents operate in the closing days or closing weeks of the market. They're putting their clients forward. United might have a rethink, but I think it would be a massive risk, Johnny, to go into the new season and not have another recognised centre forward. I know we have a few players that can play that role, but you're shoehorning. We're back in the Champions League. Sesko's not going to be playing every single game, and a knock here and there is almost inevitable. So I do
You almost
think,
need
yeah,
2 starting level strikers, don't you, really, to compete across all 4 competitions, which we want to be doing ultimately.
bring back the days of Fergie when you had 4. When you
I
had
can't believe we didn't
multiple.
go for that Welbeck, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that one was staring us right in the face. He would have come back. He's guaranteed goals in the Premier League. And I think we just need that kind of plan B option to have off the bench. And you mentioned some young strikers. I think when you look at the market, it's a poor market for strikers when you look at what's available. I don't think there's anyone that really jumps out and says, yeah, he's the one you go and get. Um, but with
I
that in
think I think
mind,
that's been made clear. I think by Bayern Munich and Barcelona linked with Sesko after like he was okay last season, but I think we all know he needs to do more to be United striker. So to see them trying to look at him as a signing, it tells you all you need to know about the market, I think.
it does. And I think what I also mean is that I don't think United need to complicate this search for a new striker. Like there could be a loan option, a young striker, because I think all I'm asking for is one, to have someone who can play that role, and two, having someone that's relatively unknown can pay dividends. I go back to Kiko Makeda, not exactly a
Mm-hmm.
world beater, but when he was a young player, he could make a difference in the game because the defenders didn't know what they were dealing with. So I think that's definitely something for United to consider in the closing weeks. Moving on, Jonny, a question I think would be perfect for you because your coverage of the U teams is fantastic on United in Focus. Who are you saying is going to be our breakout star this season under Carrick?
I think there's probably a couple of tiers of who could be the break. I think Shea Lacey's the obvious one. I think everyone will kind of think him when breakout comes to mind. But I also think we probably will see the likes of Jim Thwaites at some stage, given the lack of signings this summer. There's roles there for players in the cups, in against the pot four, pot three teams in Champions League, and I think JJ Gabriel as well. I know he's very young and very raw as well, but I think he will get chances because the club want to keep him. I think that's the only way he'll commit his future is if he's getting those chances and sort of being platformed as the superstar that he is said to be, like Max Diamond at Arsenal last season.
I think as well, for me, you mentioned Lacey. For me, he is the standout closest. Um, but just moving away from maybe that because we're agreeing on it. What do you make of what's been reported with Harry Amas throughout the summer? I think if at the beginning of the summer I would have spoken to you, we would have been very excited about his prospects going into pre-season and maybe next season coming back to United. What's happened and why is that quite not appearing to be the case? There is talk that United would accept somewhere in the region of 7 million firm to profit off the player rather than throw him into the first team and see what he's about.
I think that fee is ridiculous. Even if we are going to sell him, I think you could easily be doubling that, tripling that, and clubs would be interested because he's a top left back, and he's only going to get better. He's only 19. At 19, Lewis Hall was in Chelsea's academy, still playing games there and stuff. So I think to write him off and sort of sell him that cheap, it would be a big mistake. But obviously, we've seen this summer they've been putting those buyback clauses and matching rights and stuff. So it probably wouldn't be the end of the world. But I think he's been brilliant this summer. I don't know about you, but I think he's given Shaw a run for his money. We haven't looked worse with him in the team. We've actually looked better offensively, I think, with his overlapping and his running, which Shaw doesn't offer. Um, but yeah, I don't know if it's just the club not trusting him because Carrick seems to, or whether it's just a lack of options is why he's been given sort of so much game time. What have you thought of him this summer?
I think he's been good. I would have hoped for a little bit more. I guess like it's quite telling that you're listening to people talk about him, and even ourselves, we're not quite banging the door down. For him to get into the team, we want him to. Is that more because we want players coming from the academy into the first team? But I would be. I think I'm being honest when I say looking at his performances, although good, I'm not banging on the door. I think my next question for you on him, on Harry Amas, is can you see similarities if United decide to get rid of him this summer with Alvaro Fernandez, who was another left back, young left back we had at the club and didn't give opportunities to, wasn't long, then he went on to Real Madrid. I don't know what will happen with Jose Mourinho next season. It's anyone's guess. But can you see comparisons there potentially?
You definitely can. Yeah, both have done really well in the championship, and I think Amas has been linked with it's like West Ham, sort of top end championship side. So he'll be in the Premier League this time next year if he goes there. Um, yeah, I think it would be a mistake, but I also think he won't be leaving with out with any kind of conflict with the club. I know Alvaro didn't want to come back because he had Madrid in for him as well, but I could easily see us triggering a clause to bring Harry Mass back after a year or two if he does well.
Who will be signing of the season, Johnny?
And so many to choose from, isn't there? I think it's a toss up. I think between those two midfielders. I would hope that there'd be a third, and he'd be the signing of the season because I think we need that midfielder with more legs, who is like just an out and out ball winner. He'll protect what looks like a Maguire Martinez centre back pairing, which needs runners in front of them. But for now, I think it'll be Santos. I think he's looked brilliant in pre-season. Tielemans is going to be brilliant, I think, and his fee you can't really argue with it. But I think Santos is such a surprise. A lot of people were upset with the signing, so to see him come in and look so good in pre-season, look like a number 6, I
Mm.
think he'll be sign of the season. Would you go the other way?
I would, but it's heavily dependent on getting in that other midfielder because I think that's what's going to complement these players. I was speaking to someone earlier on about Paul Pogba, and he's someone that gets a lot of criticism in United's fan base, and rightly so in many cases. But I do feel when he was brought in, it's not that he was the wrong player, but we didn't bring in the players that we needed to complement him in midfield. We waited a year to sign Matic, who was past his best, although a good servant to the club. It wasn't quite what Pogba needed. And you look at the midfield he had at Juventus, it's night and day. And I kind of feel that with Santos and with Tielemans that you need to bring in proper players with them too, and you don't just get something new, plug it in, and it works like straight away. There's a bit more to it than that. So I think Tielemans is a star, but I think we need a bit more to really unlock that, and it would be a shame because going into this summer, revamping that midfield was the main objective. I think we've done well, we've bought well, but it's not enough yet. It's
Yeah.
definitely not enough.
Do you think
Um,
the Tielemans, Santos, Manu, do you think they're all a little bit too, for lack of a better word, slow and a little bit immobile? Because we missed out on the likes of Fernandez, Anderson, Tonali, who all are very mobile, have
yeah,
athleticism. So it seems like we've actually missed the profiles we wanted as well.
100%. But I don't think that. I think it's not those players' fault that if we're watching the first say 7 or 8 games, and these are like the massive observations we pick. Oh, this player is too slow. This player is too slow. What that tells me is we haven't bought the right players to complement them. And if you
Yeah,
get the right midfield in there, you mentioned that kind of profile, we won't be talking about Cobby not having the legs to cover this ground or whatever. It'll be irrelevant. We'll have the player doing that. Cobby can do what he does good, and the rest of the players likewise. Um, I do think look, it would be such a shame if we start the season without that solid midfield. It would make a massive, massive difference, and not just to the team, but the players you mentioned. We won't be looking at their faults. We'll be admiring their strengths.
yeah, I agree. Is there anyone that jumps out to you as the guy to go and get, or is it all? Because obviously Chouameni would have been many people's number one, but the fact of he seems to be staying now, the
It's the easy
dropout,
answer.
yeah,
It's the easy answer. He's on the top of everyone's list. To be honest with you, I don't have anyone really at the top of the list. I have a few players that I would like, and if I name them, I'd probably get crucified. But I'll give you one that I know will get some maybe backlash. But Sander Berge, I think Manchester United could do a lot worse than sign him. Looking at the market right now, and unfortunately, the longer you leave it, the price might go up and up and up. But I don't want to say desperate times for desperate measures because that would be a bit harsh on Burge, but I do think he'd make a positive difference at United.
I'm actually with you on that. I think it would have been brilliant 2 summers ago as well. when we went for Ugarte instead.
Mm.
But he's such a good underrated midfielder, and I think in the World Cup we saw it against Bruno Guimaraes. He held his own in that Norwegian midfield, and I thought he was brilliant. But obviously, people are going to be outraged if he was the third signing, I think.
Because he's not too many. But
Not
look,
like him, is he?
no, unfortunately. But look, we'll have to see what happens. I'm sure we'll have another video or two when the transfer window is done, and we'll be reflecting on it properly. But like I said at the start of this video, I do think it's a little bit early to be making kind of big predictions on the season ahead, because in 2 weeks' time we could be full of optimism based on one or two incomings. But Jonny leads us on to the final question for our season preview. What is your bold prediction for the upcoming campaign?
I've thought a lot about this because I know one of our colleagues, Vatsal, at the start of last summer or last season, he said that Bruno Fernandes would break the assist record. So I wanted to get this right. So I've gone with Brian and Bumo to be United's to score more goals than anyone in the post Sir Alex era. So in one
Okay.
season, which I believe
Okay.
is Van Persie, I think.
Yes.
So
Is it? Oh, wait.
oh
Post
no,
for
since that season, since Sir Alex's last season. Yeah.
since Van Persie's one. Yeah, I think what I'm going to go with it kind of along the lines of what you said earlier on. So it might not be a bold prediction, but you said that Rashford would score 15 or more goals. I'm going to say Rashford will contribute 25 plus goal contributions this season, which I think is a big one, because whether or not he's going to be at the club when the season starts is unknown. And then you have the question of, is he going to come back, pull his socks up, and make a positive contribution? That's up for debate too. That's why people are unsure whether they want him back or not.
I think we all want him to do well because if he does well, it means the team's doing well, and maybe that Premier League title will be coming home.
Number 21. So look, thanks so much for tuning in to the United in Focus YouTube channel, our season preview. Myself, Dale, delighted as ever to be joined by Jonny. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel for more videos, and leave a comment. Let us know what you think. Let us know if you agree with our predictions. And of course, let us know if you disagree. Really interested in hearing that. Thanks for watching.